Shoot the messenger. Feminism told y'all be strong, independent, and alone. And y'all followed it to the grave. Y'all pushed all the good men away, called submission slavery, and think being difficult is cute. Now y'all 35 and tired, looking around like, oh, where the good men at? Sis, they moved on. Real men want peace, not problems in a lace front and a loud voice. Feminism sold y'all freedom, but they didn't mention the price. Loneliness. Shoot.
So I think this is a good example of what I've been saying lately on the other pages, on the other videos, that social change takes a while, and one of the biggest catalysts, for change is when you watch the outcomes of this generation before you. If you ever go into start a new job and it's actually a career, you can see where your trajectory is going to be, where it's going to land you by watching people that are nearing retirement. In this case, it's the younger generation watching their aunties, their mothers, their great aunts, seeing how what their outcomes look like. Also, their uncles. This is both sides. This is why you didn't really need a manosphere or YouTube for that change to start coming across men, because they're starting to say this marriage thing isn't really working out, or I'm just kind of miserable. And we're getting together in the barbershops and basketball courts and noticing like, yeah, we're saying the same things and we're both unhappy about the same things. The younger generation was seeing that and saying, okay, I don't want that. I don't want that. Now, with the proliferation of the internet, when people put their stories right front, right, and center, everyone is looking and saying, okay, yeah, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. And further exemplified by, yeah, if this is what freedom and feminism bought, there were always a large group of women saying, that's not what I wanted. But whenever you would disagree with that, right? And ladies, step in if I'm wrong. But we see cases of when women are saying feminism is about choice, about having the ability to make the choice. Well, some still just wanted to be stay-at-home wives. They wanted to raise children. They wanted to have families. That was still the most paramount thing to them. Then they were vilified. They were shamed. They were attacked for not doing what the larger group or the feminist group said was important, what you should be doing with yourself. You should be get out there, having your own career, having your own money, having your own independence. When you take that as a sort of front or dig against the collective, that's what you end up having. They feel like you have to ostracize and push that side out and say you're bad, we're good. But the younger generation is seeing this and saying, yeah, I don't want any of this. But before we run this back and do a deeper dive into it, hit that like button, subscribe, comment, share the video if you feel so inclined. Still trying to do 2 a day. Liking the growth of the channel. Sometimes the YouTube algorithm shines its light on you and says, hey, take a look. But the name of the game, you still got to be around whenever the algorithm comes about. So for you guys currently, making comments on the videos, that's what the page is about. Just having the dialogue. And yeah, some of you guys are funny. Some of you guys are hurt, right? I've been there. Sometimes I can jump in and commiserate with you guys. But back on this video, back at the topic at hand.
The messenger. Feminism told y'all be strong, independent, and alone. And y'all followed it to the grave. Y'all pushed all the good men away, called submission slavery, and think being difficult is cute. Now y'all 35 and tired, looking around like, oh, where the good men at?
So that, like, the vilification of submission, right? And looking at it, and I think we created an environment or society that constantly looks at the bad, constantly looks at how things can go wrong, and then says that and holds that up as being the norm. This could happen, so you have to protect yourself from it. We're all running around with various amounts of trauma and then trying to protect ourselves from being hurt going forward into the future. So essentially, we are cutting off avenues of potential happiness because potentially things could go wrong. When we make assumptions, right? I often say, I try not to make assumptions, but it's a normal thing. You have to do it. Your brain does it on its own. But when you feel yourself assuming things will go wrong, there's times when you should also, to counter that, say, assume it works out. What happens if it all goes wrong? What happens if it all works out? Try to find yourself somewhere in the middle. Ideally, that's how we should operate. Realistically, what we tend to do instead is catastrophize and think it's going to go wrong. So before I get off, before this ship goes down, I'm going to get off. And by me getting off, it's me saying, protecting myself. Do we know how to protect ourselves in a healthy manner? Probably not. Especially when it's talking about relationships. Relationships are risky, inherently risky. You're opening yourself up, or you potentially want to walk down the path of opening yourself up to someone with the hopes that they too are going to do the same thing, with the hopes that they're going to hold your feelings as sacrosanct as their own. It's a bunch of hope. When it works out well. It's beautiful, right? It's fulfilling. It feels amazing. But when it doesn't, and it frequently doesn't, we feel hurt, and then we take that trauma from that pain and we walk it forward. So the next person I say, okay, I did this before, I'll never do it again. And we've heard that several times, right? I invested in man, I'll never do it again. Right? I, paid for these things, I'll never be used by a woman again. I'll never get gold, I'll never, be with a gold digger again. We do this on both sides, right? So this is not blame, this is not a blame game. This is a understanding that the choices that we've made, some us millennial generation, the younger generation are watching us, they're watching our outcomes, and they're saying, I don't want that. And kudos to the young women if this is becoming more of a movement and walking and seeing and saying, okay, wow, I don't want those outcomes. And I see the most important thing is there isn't submission, there isn't cooperation with the men you say you want. So if I can not listen to that, if I can dump off some of my baggage, some of my trauma, I might have a better shot at getting what it is that I actually want. And again, double kudos if double kudos are a thing to the woman saying that. And I've talked to women today who are saying, yeah, I want a soft life. I don't want to work. Right. But this is after, you know, years of college, years of degrees, years of a career job. You know, you're in a situation where it's easy to take someone when they're young and say you want a soft life and you walk this trajectory to have that, rather than taking someone in their mid 30s, 40s, 50s and saying, okay, you want a soft life, but you have a mountain of debt. You have a mountain of bills. You have a mountain of things to sift through and sort through before you can kind of just get clear. So it's to say nothing of the children aspect of it, right? It's easier sometimes to reset the game, right? Rather than to sort of course correct towards the end. And since we can't reset life, there's unfortunately a large amount of us that are going to be lonely, right? If we don't do something now and something drastic. And the thing is just it's harder for us to do that as we become more set in our ways. We we don't want to take the risk. We don't want to take the risk of being open ourselves up to be hurt. But we should start with making the assumption of, yeah, what if it all goes wrong? What if I open myself up again and I get hurt? What if it doesn't? What if it all works out? Right? I think that's a healthy way to end this one. Listen, if you listen to my sound of my voice right now, and I hope the audio is better for some of you guys, depending what platform you listen to. But with the end of the video, you should, throw a subscription in there. And if you see videos on your screen right now, go ahead and take a look. Let me know your thoughts on those as well. I'll see you guys on the next one.